What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball, and more importantly, welcome back to our season preview series. This is the series where we cover all 30 NBA teams before the start of the regular season. We go really in depth in these videos. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things. We're going to talk about goals we have for the team, what their offseason looked like. We'll do a complete roster, salary cap, draft asset breakdown. We'll talk about rotations and lineups we want to see. We'll do some mock trades, and ultimately we'll follow everything up with my conclusion of where do I think this team is going to finish this year in the regular season. And in this video, we got the Chicago Bulls, my favorite team that I kind of hate that they're my favorite team sometimes, but they're my favorite team. I'm a loyal dude. It's what it's going to be. But before we get into any of that, make sure that you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. This is, I don't even know what episode this is. It's probably going to be like the 6th episode in this series by the time you guys see it. There should be a whole week of content that you might have missed at this point already, so I encourage you guys to go back and watch all of the other teams. We really want to prepare you guys for the regular season, go in depth, so that way all you basketball sweats are ready for the season. With all that being said, let's get into it. And that brings us back here to the season preview spreadsheet. Basically, if you're new to the channel, I like to kind of build these spreadsheets to help articulate and visualize the stories that I'm telling on my YouTube channel. And I don't know, I kind of like to build these out. I think they're a lot of fun. You can actually get access to these spreadsheets if you want to. It's really simple. If you go into the description of this video, you'll see a link to join my Discord. That's completely free. If you hop on there and go over to the announcements channel, you can find a link to download this spreadsheet. And I'm going to be updating this spreadsheet basically every day with new and updated data as more data comes in. I just need to add more to it and stuff to make it completely functional, but maybe it's a way for you to learn some things and have some fun with it. But with all that being said, let's talk about the Bulls. Let's talk about the Chicago Bulls. I know there's a lot on screen right now that you want to read and talk about, so just hear your boy out for a little bit. Hear your boy out. Obviously, I'm a Bulls fan, and I pick the order at which we're going at these teams very strategically. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a reason I just kind of wanted to get the Bulls out of the way. I'll just come right out and say I think the Chicago Bulls are in the worst position of anybody in the NBA. I truly do. I think the Sacramento Kings are a close second, and I'm really trying to not just be like, oh, you're upset because your favorite team isn't this. No, I'm like, I try to be really objective with this stuff, and I'm pretty sure they are. But let's talk about what the Bulls did this last season. The center point of last season was really the fact that they kind of started to blow things up a little bit. They ended up trading Zach LaVine in a deal that wasn't all that great. Alex Caruso was moved just before the season for Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey had a really interesting end of the year where he started to show like, hey, this guy can kind of be something in the NBA, which most of us already knew. But once he had a team around him that was a little bit more fitting to his play style, he started to play a little bit better. And the Bulls finished with the 39-43 record, good for what I believe was like the 10 seed or something. The Chicago Bulls have been the 9 or 10 seed like the last, like, each of the what was it? It was like 8 out of the last 9 basketball seasons. That is the epitome of what the kids call mid. It's just a horrible place to be. They never get a top draft pick. Well, they did the one time with Patrick Williams, and that didn't go the greatest. It wasn't an elite draft class, but you missed out on some talent, that's for sure. And they just continue to be this way. This franchise never picks a direction. The owner is known for being pretty cheap, doesn't go into the luxury tax very often, and is kind of always like, let's just put as competitive of a team out there that we can every single year because, well, the Bulls tend to lead in attendance every year. That's just kind of what happens. Chicago sports fans are pretty, we'll call it rabid, and they kind of just show up no matter what. So we're kind of dumb, loyal people ultimately in Chicago, which doesn't necessarily bode well for this franchise ever changing, but it is what it is. So we're kind of in this not so great spot still. Not a lot of questions have been answered about this team. A direction doesn't seem to be picked at this point in time. So let's talk about franchise status and what I have here. So there's a couple different categories that you can fall into in these videos. You have selling teams, so teams that are trying to tear things down and kind of start a rebuild. That's where I'd like us to be, but we're not. Rebuilding, that's like, all right, we're trying to find who those kind of core pieces are. The Bulls seem to be trying to do that a little bit. bit. Then there's also growing, which means you found those core pieces. You're kind of trying to get better with those people, right? Put a team around them and eventually become contenders. That's what contending is. But then we have the who the fuck knows category right here, because I figured we'd be able to use it for somebody. The Bulls are definitely one of those teams, because who the fuck knows where they're trying to go. They're going to keep getting like the 11th and 12th picks or whatever, and not get top tier talent, and it's just gonna hurt my soul for forever. But with all that being said, let's talk about goals. Blow it up. Just please end it all. There's still like players on this team that just don't need to be here, and we'll talk about it at this point, because there's some good basketball players on this team, but send them somewhere else, please. And word on the street is they tried a little bit this season. They should have done it years ago, man. Should have done it years ago. This team, literally since Derrick Rose has been down, has just been trying and trying to like just keep on scraping into the playoffs so we can get that little bit of extra playoff revenue every single year. And it's just, it's frustrating. You'll notice here that I wrote keep the coach. Billy Donovan is a phenomenal basketball coach. That's when some Bulls fans started coming, AVC, they gotta fire the coach because they're not winning any basketball games. Shut the fuck up, Billy. You don't know anything about Coach Billy. I promise you, you don't. You're a dummy. Those people that get on the internet and just spew nonsense about like, oh, we're not winning basketball games, so we should fire the coach. It is not Coach Donovan's fault. I promise you it's not. I've got a pretty good connection to all that stuff. Every player, every other coach loves this dude. Like, other people from other teams talk super highly of him. Dude's a pretty good strategist. All of a sudden, he just hasn't had a very good basketball team. None of the teams that he's had in this time, like, should be very good, even. Like, they just shouldn't be. So, like, I don't know what you want. The guys like him. He puts together a pretty competent play style. Last year, the Bulls were one of the fastest teams in the NBA. He looked around and he's like, all right, the only way we're going to win any games is if we get a little gimmicky, and we're just kind of going to have to get up and down the court because our team just, like, isn't that good, and that's going to win us some basketball games, and that's what he did. That's good. That's what you should do. I think he does a really good job. So blow up the team, keep the coach. Like, you got a good coach. They got that. Obviously, there's an extension and everything that he just kind of went through and did, but, you know, some teams still like to fire them every once in a while still, because no coach can keep their job for forever. I think it's Coach Spoelstra and Coach Billy Donovan are like the two longest tenured coaches in the NBA now. Isn't that crazy? Next point, get young guys on the court, because, like, fuck it, why not? Like, let's lose a couple basketball games because that'd be nice every once in a while. Like, I don't care about winning, honestly, that much at this point, but you got a couple young guys on the team. I'll say not particularly curious about many of them, but let's get them on the court, because let's find out if that's going to become anything. Next thing I have, build up draft pick stash. This team look, they should be a rebuilding team, right? They should be, but they're in the who the fuck knows category, so the Bulls don't even have like a lot of assets to go to going forward. Like, sell some people, let's get some assets, let's try to build up an actual team of young guys, right? Bottom out a little bit, but one of the steps in that is we got to build some capital, right? Like, let's get some draft picks and kind of move forward from there. Final goal I have is stop hurting AVC. Your boy, it hurts to watch this team at this point. It really does. I will say, I thought last year was the least interested I'd ever been in a Chicago Bulls team. This is the least interested I've ever been in a Chicago Bulls team. I'm just kind of sitting here waiting, and I don't know. I just don't care to watch this. I'm not really bonded with any of the players on this team. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm a root for them. Anytime I turn the game on, I'm going to be like, come on, guys, we got to win. But I just miss the old days, man. I miss the old days. I really do. But you guys aren't here to listen to AVC yell at clouds or whatever. It's just I wanted to express that I miss having like favorite players on the team. I miss Jimmy Butler. I miss the Luol Dengs, Joakim Noahs, obviously Derrick Rose, all of those guys. Even like Wade and Rondo, those were fun guys. But it's just been nonsense for a while now. It's just been hell. I loved Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. They were great. It's just I don't know, man. I don't know. All right. Let's keep these goals in mind and everything, and the franchise status of who the fuck knows, because those are going to be important themes as we go throughout the rest of this video. Let's talk about what they did this offseason, because it wasn't much. Alrighty, so if you guys have been watching my channel for any amount of time, you guys are probably familiar with this tab here. Basically, when we did the season preview series before, we broke the offseason down into 3 different categories. The same ones still apply here. We have drafted players, so players that were just drafted that are going to be on the full-time roster. I understand that there's a second-round pick, Lachlan. He's not going to be on the full-time roster, so he doesn't get included here. Player departures, guys that were on the full-time roster last season that are no longer on the full-time roster coming into to this season. And then we have players brought in, obviously guys from either other teams or whatever that were brought in via trades or signs that are now going to be on the full-time roster. You understand the theme here. Drafted players. We have Noah Senge. If you guys are curious about any prospects ever, I do have pretty in-depth playlists here, and this series performed really well. By the way, we're definitely going to be doing this series again, even though the videos got demonetized all the time. I don't give a shit about the money, man. I'm just glad you guys like watching these or whatever. And these really blew up around draft time too. Like, people, once their teams like got players, they were like, ooh, now I get to go learn everything about the players I actually care about or whatever, which I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted this series to be. That's awesome. But if you want to learn about Senge, I've got a whole video on him here, and my quick synopsis of him is, I'm not a big fan. I was kind of bummed with the draft pick. Lengthier wing, that kind of the description when you talk to most other scouts or whatever, and obviously that was something that I was involved in. All kind of say the same thing of like, we've seen a glimmer of just about everything from this guy, but it hasn't been more than a glimmer. Like, we've seen some interesting defensive potential. He's got a great kind of NBA build to him. He's handled the ball a little bit, shot the ball a little bit, like been a passer a little bit. Nothing really stands out though, and my kind of rule of thumb is if nothing really stands out, then I'm kind of just not interested whatsoever. I won't deny he's an interesting physical prospect. I don't know exactly what you're building towards with him, outside of the fact that you just hope that he develops this kind of all-around game or something that I'm not so sure about. You kind of already have another project like that in Matas, so I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the draft pick, but this team did need to take some swings on upside, so I appreciate the fact that they at least went with somebody that you look at them and you're like, okay, this is an upside kind of prospect, right? So is what it is. That's what we brought in this year. Let's see if he gets on the court at all this season. Yeah, player departures. Lonzo Ball was traded for Isaac Okoro. Pretty much just like a straight up thing that the Bulls did. Lonzo Ball had been fighting through injuries for forever. When Lonzo Ball was healthy, dude was awesome for the Bulls. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA, so I was pretty bummed to see him go. And I don't know, I didn't think the trade was anything like stupendous, but you know what? They got another quote-unquote young player to develop in Isaac Okoro. So it's a bit of a bummer, but the value wasn't all that high anyway. I do appreciate the fact that they gave him like a new contract last year that was then easily tradable, so you could go get somebody else with it. I just don't know like if Isaac Okoro was necessarily the answer, but it is what it is. We also lost Talen Horton-Tucker. He's going to go play overseas. He was part of the regime of the all point guard team that the Bulls were kind of building over the past 2 seasons. If you guys weren't aware, they had like 8 point guards on the roster, like 8 or 9, that they just kind of played in the 1 through 3 position. Horton-Tucker was part of that crew, so not missing out on him being on the roster this year, but he has departed. And again, they brought in Isaac Okoro from Cleveland as a part of the Lonzo Ball trade, kind of a 3-and-D, maybe slightly undersized wing, a former lottery pick for the Cavs. Honestly been a serviceable NBA player at this point in his career. Again, solid outside shooter, pretty good defensive player. The Bulls did need some help at kind of the wing spot and needed more floor spacing and stuff, so it's something. Again, I don't know what the long-term vision is here. I'm not sure how much better Isaac Okoro necessarily gets, which again, solid NBA player all around. It's just like, okay, we couldn't have maybe found something a little bit more long-range projected for Lonzo Ball. I don't know. It's kind of a weird one, but he'll definitely be highly featured on the team this season. So there you go. That's the offseason, man. Like, it wasn't a great draft in my opinion, especially when you consider the fact that the Bulls, like, they had like a much higher second round pick and they just sold the pick to move back or whatever. It's like, it's something that the Bulls do all the time. They're like, ooh, I can have cash right now if I move back in the draft, and they do it, and there were solid players available. And I don't know, I feel like whenever a team does that, it just tells you they're not that serious about this shit. Yes, they weren't gonna have necessarily a roster spot or whatever, but like, dude, make some moves, do something. I don't know, it's a bummer. Pretty non-consequential offseason, if you ask me, all said and done. So we go into this season with a pretty similar roster to last year. So let's go take a look at that roster. Alrighty, again, if you're familiar with my channel at all, you're probably pretty used to seeing this tab at this point. This is one that we go to frequently because it displays a lot of information in a pretty clean and organized way for us to talk about. We'll be able to talk about like the current roster and some numbers behind it. We got a depth chart here that, as I always say, nobody in the comment section is going to get mad at whatsoever. If you see AVC, Julian Phillips is a shooting guard in 2K, so that's what he's going to play. Shut the fuck up, Billy. I don't give a shit. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the team's like salary cap space. We'll do draft picks and what kind of assets they're working with there. But where I always like to start off with is in the roster itself. And we've got kind of an interesting one to talk about here because at the time of recording, this is Wednesday of the previous week. So things might have happened since then, but we'll get to it, right? First one, Nikola Vucevic, who actually just announced that he's retiring from international basketball and will just be kind of finishing out his NBA career now. Vucevic is a really good basketball player, man. Oh, you know what? Before I even get into that, sorry, new viewers, what are these numbers right here? These are EPM numbers. This is the whole spiel I go through every time. You're going to get used to it, and you guys are going to know this shit and be able to explain it to everybody by the end. EPM stands for estimated plus minus. It's basically a really, really advanced statistic that we have that tells you how good somebody is at offense, defense, and overall as a basketball player. I then take all those numbers, normalize them, index them so that we can get a 0 to 100 score as to how good somebody is at each of those compared to everyone else in the NBA. Obviously 100 being the highest percentile, 0 being the lowest. As I will always tell you as the guy that runs a basketball statistics company, no statistic is perfect, but this one is pretty damn good. You need people with critical thinking skills to look at a stat and say, okay, well, what's the context that the stat can't actually grab? And that's the important thing of statistics work. And so just know that there's no God stats ever, but this one's pretty dang good at what it does. Vucevic, awesome offensive basketball player. He found his three-point shot again last year. The dude's kind of an Iron Man too. He plays like every single game, plays pretty standard, or he plays quite a few minutes. He can shoot from the outside. He can score on the inside. He's an offensive force. He's a great rebounder. Not much you can do to stop Vucevic from doing what it is that he does on the pick and pop or down on the block. Defensively, not the greatest. He's one of the worst pick and roll defenders I've watched in a long time because he's not the best athlete, things like that. But just like on the block being a defender, he's actually pretty quality, and that's probably why you see that he's rated as like an above average defensive player. And Vucevic has been a part of good defensive teams throughout his career. So while he's never been an elite defender himself, he does have areas that he excels in versus other areas where he's maybe just like not as good. Again, Vucevic is a player that I'd like to have get traded if at all possible. It seems like there isn't much of a market here, which I kind of don't understand because he's below market value in terms of price and it's a one-year deal, so you should be able to get something for him. He's a good basketball player. Next, another big man on the team, Zach Collins. Got him in a trade last year as a part of the Zach LaVine deal or whatever. He's fine. I don't know. Zach Collins doesn't always do a ton for you that you actually want a big man to do, but he's like a fine, just kind of all-around reserve big or whatever. He's paid too much. It just kind of is what it is. I'm not sure what role he'll really play this year between him and Jalen Smith. One of them will play the backup center position. If you trade Vucevic, they'll both get to play, probably split minutes, but I don't know. He's never really intrigued me all that much. I like the effort that he gives, though. It's great. And again, it's 1 year left, so I'm not tripping if he's on the roster. It's going to be pretty impossible to trade him anyway. Patrick Williams. Oh, boy. I remember when Patrick Williams got drafted and they showed that he used to work in the flower shop or whatever. My wife was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm so happy you guys got this guy. And I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, y'all. I've had my hopes with Patrick Williams over the past couple of years, and you never want to write off a player ever, right? But his extension is just kicking in, and the numbers here are honestly pretty reflective of how it's been, man. In his career, he just cannot get anything going offensively, despite having a very, very impressive skill set. There just doesn't seem to be like the drive to do so. On the basketball court, he's a little bit timid. It's not what it is. And even the defense that was pretty good earlier in his career just wasn't as good this last year. Now he was fighting through some injuries and stuff, so we like to think that'll be better. But Patrick Williams is not so great contract on the books for the next couple of years unless we see a very significant shift in who he is as a player. Kevin Huerter, another guy that was acquired via trade at one point. Solid basketball player, right? Hasn't quite been able to find his three-point stroke in a couple seasons now, which is kind of the main thing he's used for as a basketball player traditionally. He does have like a wider skill set than you might think just by like looking at him, but fine basketball player last year on his contract, and then he's off the books as well, which is good. The Bulls will have some cap space, and that's what people keep saying. But guess what? Nobody goes to fucking free agency anymore. It doesn't matter. You got to be bad. Draft your own talent. Build your own talent. That's how the NBA works right now. So, yeah, great. The Bulls will have some cap space. It really doesn't matter. Outside of the fact that once we have that cap space, hopefully that we can play into that role of like, hey, give us all your bad contracts, but also give us draft picks in doing so. So that's what I'm hoping we can do at some point. Kobe White. Kobe White's become quite the quality kind of combo guard in the NBA. Offensively, there's not much that he can't do. One of the things that he really needed to work on was getting to the hoop a little bit more, getting to the free throw line. He very much improved that this last year. Not many guys can stay in front of him. The size and speed and ball handling is really awesome. The shot making's great. Good outside shooter and all that. Defensively, pretty bad. Not very good at that. I'm not sure he's destined to be a starter on a winning team in the NBA as much as just like a super six man. But I do think there's some teams where he would really benefit from being moved there, and he could play a big role on a winning team. But the Bulls continue to not trade him. Apparently they had some offers for first round picks last year. Didn't do it, and I don't know why, because now we have to sign him to like an extension and everything, and what are you going to give Kobe? I don't know. I just don't know. Moving on, we already talked about Isaac Okoro. Jalen Smith, actually one of my more favorite players on the team. I like watching Jalen Smith play. Kind of a stretch big, maybe a little bit undersized if he's falling just below 6'10". 6'9's not bad, though, for a big if you're a pretty good athlete, which he is. He's able to step out and hit a little bit. He can run like the pick and roll as well, which is nice. Defensively, maybe a little bit less than ideal at times, just being out of position a little bit, and again, just being outsized by some other bigs that exist out there, but solid player overall. I think he's on a very favorable contract, and I feel like you could actually get a decent haul for him if you tried to move him, just because bigs are such a hard commodity to come by right now. So another guy worth maybe trading. Trey Jones, another guy that they got via trade during the Zach LaVine side of things. Trey Jones, he's just like Tyus, man. He's quick. He's good defensively. He's one of the better playmakers in the NBA, just setting up offense, getting people the ball where they need it to, doesn't make a ton of mistakes, plays well in transition. He's a good basketball player. They got him on a good contract over the next couple seasons now. Again, not sure why we need him or anything. We've got enough kind of people at his position or whatever, but he is on the team and he's a quality player. So again, another trade chip. Ayo Dosunmu kind of took a step back this last year. What was a very interesting second round pick that was added to the team a couple years ago. Might have been dealing with some injuries and stuff this last season, but offensively just could not really get anything going for the team, and defensively, like, he really did like fall off a cliff. He just like didn't look nearly as mobile this last season. Kind of a problem. Javon Carter, another guard on this team. There's a lot of them. He picked up his team option. I keep saying I feel like we could go to some more expensive NBA teams and flip him and turn him into something, because at least he is a serviceable basketball player. We've seen him be a solid kind of 3-and-D point guard at points in his NBA career, but we haven't seen him on the court much over the past couple seasons because he's been buried in the point guard depth. But there he is. Matas Buzelis, the thing that gave a lot of Chicago fans hope this last year. What once was one of the top high school prospects in his class fell because when he went to the Ignite in the G League, it didn't look very good. We got him with a late lottery pick because we always have a late lottery pick. And here's the thing. A lot of Bulls fans get very excited about Matas because he's 6'10". He is very athletic. He can really move his body, get up and down the court, and he can punch it, right? Those are all very exciting things that the average basketball fan looks at and they go, wow, look at that guy go. He's 6'10" and can do all that, because you haven't been around high-level basketball before, and you know that skill set itself, while it's great to be 6'10" and be able to do all that, it's not exactly surefire, this guy's going to be a stud type of thing. There really wasn't one thing in Matas's game outside of maybe help side defense that really stood out to me last year. The playmaking was pretty rough, right? The outside shooting, not very consistent. It got better towards the end of the year, but that's kind of what we'll talk about, end of the year basketball or whatever. Just half-court offense, wasn't able to initiate anything, get his teammates involved. Not the best rebounder or whatever. He's a little bit skinny. But look, he's a rookie, right? It's just, I don't know where to project someone like him, and he's personally not a prospect that I get personally very excited about, just the scout in me and the player development coach in me. Not one that I get excited about, but I'm rooting for him, man. I'm rooting for the hometown kid so much. I hope that that's clear. I really am. It's just my job to be objective with these kind of people. So I'm not maybe as excited as other people, but hey, he's going to get the chance to shine this year. let's give it to him. We already talked about Noah. Dalen Terry, another walking example of an NBA team drafts player and doesn't realize like what their actual skill set is and then just kind of fucks them over. Dalen Terry was a ball handling wing that was known as a pretty good playmaker coming out of college, and they drafted him to a team with all point guards that want the ball all of the time, and they're like, oh, why doesn't Dalen Terry do anything for us? It's because like oh, you guys piss me off. That's just how I feel about it. It's just a silly pick. The poor Dalen Terry. Maybe he could have turned into something a little bit more by now if he was given the right opportunities, but it's hard. Not every prospect's going to get that chance either. You have to adapt as well, but I don't know. It was a silly pick. And then Julian Phillips, another guy that Bulls fans kind of cream themselves over at times. Sorry for the vulgarness, but I don't give a fuck either. Because he can jump very high. Doesn't really have much else going on in his game, though, but let's keep him on the team. Maybe a young guy develops. Last guy, Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey, the guy that we got for Alex Caruso. A lot of Bulls fans, maybe not the happiest that they didn't get draft picks for things. I didn't mind the Josh Giddey trade. I'm on record as saying, like, hey, you get draft picks to get good young players, and you hope that they're going to be good. We already knew that Josh Giddey was a good young player, man. He's one of the better playmakers in the NBA, can do a lot of different things for you offensively, really generate things, increase some pace. Pretty good at what he does, right? It didn't look great at the start of this last season, but as soon as Levine got moved and the roster again was a little bit more fitting to his play style, Josh Giddey took off, right? The back half of the season, dude was dominating. We're talking like 20-point triple-doubles, hitting game-winning shots, right? Just being an offensive force. Giddey was awesome. Now, the last like 2 months of an NBA regular season, we tend to always tell people are not very good representations of the NBA. Teams change up things a lot to where we just kind of say it's not great sample for what is to come, right? Now, logically, I could tell you I would imagine Josh Giddey would get better with kind of a new roster and stuff too, so we're going to see this year kind of what happens because, again, the roster should be a little bit more tailored to his play style, so we'll see what happens. But Josh Giddey is also not on the Chicago Bulls at this moment in time. His rights are, but he's not. Because he's one of like those 4 restricted free agents that has not signed yet, just because the restricted free agency bubble is very complicated at the moment. Basically, the free agents themselves don't have any leverage to go get the contracts that they probably deserve. But I mean, if you're the team that kind of has these players, like, why would you just give them more stuff when you could get the players for less? Josh Giddey wants about $30 million a year. The Bulls have apparently offered him 20. That's a very big difference. 20 is actually below starter money as well, so it's a bit of a slap in the face, if you ask me. Now, Josh Giddey's camp has said, like, hey, we might just take the qualifying offer or whatever, which would be disastrous for the Bulls, so I don't think that that'll happen, because if the Bulls just lose Josh Giddey after this next year, like, regardless of how good or bad he is, that's just objectively a stupid thing, because that just shows you went and got this player and didn't believe in him at all, like, ever, right? So I think a contract will be found. I think it's going to come in the form of like 24-ish million over like 4 years, and I think he's going to have like a team option, or not a team option, a player option at the end that just says like, hey, if I fucking hate your guys' guts, I can just dip after that. So that's what I think is going to happen, is something around that range. That's just what makes sense to me, but that's yet to be seen. I'd be pretty shocked if he isn't on the Bulls in some capacity this next season. So that's the roster. No roster spots left. This is kind of what the Bulls are going to look like. If we take a look at a depth chart, it does look a lot better than it did the past couple years, again, because they don't have 9 point guards on the team. They still have a lot of them, but it's it's not an obscene amount at this point. The roster is actually like pretty balanced overall. This team like is no pushover by any means, and again, they're probably going to be a gimmick team again. Billy Donovan's going to be like, let's get out and run, let's get up shots, like let's go. We don't have a ton of defense out on this team because we don't really have any defensive bigs. We've got a couple defensive like forwards on the team that can do some things, but even our guards aren't that great defensively overall, so we're just gonna have to outscore people every single night, and those teams are dangerous on a night-to-night basis. They are, because they could sneak a win in whenever and kind of trick you into thinking they're good, but it's gimmicky, right? And the Pacers were kind of the ultimate gimmick team. They were just so good at their gimmick that no one could stop them. So we're kind of like poor man's Pacers, I guess, for this season. But overall, like, solid basketball team night in and night out, so I guess we'll see. Let's talk about cap space now. For those of you new to the channel, 4 levels to the NBA salary cap. I'm just going to explain them really quickly. First is the cap line itself. Once this number hits 0, meaning they've crossed it, which the Bulls have, they can only re-sign their own players to anything more than a minimum contract. Then we have the scarier one, the luxury tax line itself. The Bulls are $14.6 million away from that currently, but that's with my projection of Josh Giddey, obviously. Basically, once you cross that, your team gets way more expensive to operate, and every single year you're in it, you pay more and more and more. The Bulls are one of the teams in the NBA that have made it very clear that they do not pay that luxury tax. It's not what they do, because they have a cheap, rich owner that, there's an oxymoron for you, kinda, not actually, but the Bulls don't do that. That's not the game that they play. Is what it is. But there are also the aprons as well, something the Bulls will never sniff, but they're there. If you want to read the full implication of the aprons, you can pause the video here and read them. I just have them on screen for you right there. But basically, the aprons are the NBA's way of trying to make things a little bit more competitive, because in theory, as your team gets better, it's going to cost more. And so the league starts to restrict what it is that you're able to do in terms of like exceptions. Who can you sign? Who can you trade? All of these different things. The higher and higher you go, all the way up to where you get to the second apron, where they kind of just lock you down and they say, this is your team. You're stuck with them unless you want to blow it up completely. So that's kind of how it works, and it's things like that and the luxury tax line are why the Celtics and Heat had to like make some moves this offseason and be like, look, we just kind of have to duck this tax. We literally can't operate as a business unless we get away from it. So that's kind of how that works. The Bulls being where they're at, like by the way, the Bulls shouldn't be a luxury tax team right now. Like, they're not good enough to warrant doing it, so they should stay below that tax. Assets, we kind of talked about this. Bulls kind of just have all of their picks. The only like spare pick that they have, outside of them not having like a couple second round picks, because the Bulls love to throw second round picks into trades that they don't need to be in, just to be like, look, we'll sweeten the pot a little bit with this, some shit like that. They're like, oh yeah, what does this? It's like if someone slid you like a $1 bill and they're like, does this change your mind on the trade? The Bulls just love to do that after like everybody's already agreed to everything in the trade most likely, and the Bulls like, wait, we'd like to throw a second round pick in as well. And the other team's like, okay, Chicago, thank you. That's great, man. That really helped the trade go through. And they're like, we know. But they've got all their own picks, which is great. They also have this Trailblazers pick that's just been kind of holding on for a couple of years. That's lottery protected. I think after this year, it becomes a second round pick, because let's be honest, like, Portland will probably be a lottery team, but maybe not. Like, it's not as surefire as other years, so maybe we get to use this pick this year. That'd be great. But otherwise, like, the Bulls really don't have that much in terms of draft capital. It'd be great if they could add some. And speaking of adding things, let's get on to the trade portion of the video, man, because there's a lot of people that could be moved on this team that I would love to see it happen in some capacity. Like, I just want this team to blow up, and I want draft picks. I want young players, and I want draft picks. That's what I think this team should do. I think all of us kind of agree that's what the Bulls should do. So we want to keep, probably out of everybody, like, you keep the rookie you took this year in Gay, Buzelis, because why the hell not? And you keep Josh Giddey, right? Because Josh Giddey, we know, is a pretty good basketball player already. Keep those guys. Let's try to trade some other people, because please. And that brings us over here to Fanspo. Fanspo, for those of you that don't know, really cool website where you can do a bunch of trades, mock drafts, all of those things or whatever. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just think the website's cool. We normally use Fanspo to kind of make these deals or whatever, but Fanspo's not the best at keeping things up to date. We just mentioned this in the video to be like, hey, Fanspo, I know that you guys have a free website and you probably don't have a ton of time in the world to put effort in to it. I know you put a lot of effort into it, but can you keep the players updated and the trade machine updated? It'd be great. So we're going to use Spot Track. They've got like a beta version of this. It doesn't work like the most clean ever, but it's going to be good enough for us to actually go and make some moves. So what I'm thinking here is, look, we're not going over the luxury tax, right? We could take on a little bit of extra salary, though, if it means that we can take on some draft picks or something, right? So there's a couple teams that come to mind right away that I'm like, okay, they need to like sell some things and we could maybe take some of those things on. And I kind of want to start there. I also want to try and trade Vucevic in a deal, because we should. I doubt we're going to be able to trade like a Kevin Huerter, a Patrick Williams, or a Zach Collins. I think that's pretty unrealistic, honestly. I'd like to find a home for Kobe White, because I've got an idea of where he should go. But let's kind of start doing this. This one might be a few more trades than we otherwise have. So do we want to start with Vucevic? I think that that's a solid place to start. Initial teams that we think of that could use Vucevic. I immediately think the Golden State Warriors because any big probably helps them at this point. Quentin Post is fine, but they could probably use a little bit more help. Al Horford presumably will be on the team as well, but that's yet to happen. But again, I think they'd still like to have Vucevic if they could. Apparently, they have been trying to make some stuff happen with Kuminga, but the Bulls again are just being complete fucking morons with things. So let's figure this out. How can we get Vucevic over to Golden State, get them a big man, a rebounder, another outside shooter? That'd be a cool thing. What do we need to do in order to get him over here? Moses Moody, that's a guy that Bulls could take on, younger guy. He's been looking for a change of scenery for a long time. We'll take him. Right, we'll take him right here. So the trade would fail. That makes a lot of sense. So we just need to send out a little bit more money. So this is where you probably send out like a Guy Santos, most likely. Send him back to Chicago as well. How much money is that? That's $2-ish million. Can we make them take anybody else? Probably not. I doubt it, at least. So, okay, this trade in theory works. We'd probably ask for like second round pick or something like that. Sure, this 2030 one, it's got protections on it, so maybe you don't get that at all. Maybe you just kind of get off the money more so than anything else, and they'll say, oh, you got Moses Moody, it's a younger guy. Cool, potential avenue for it. If we wanted to, we could also say, I've said the Memphis Grizzlies one because I think that they could use a more reliable, actual center on the team, and I think Vooch would be kind of cool for that, especially next to Jaren Jackson. You'll get some pretty solid defense out of it. The trade that I've always just kind of mocked up is you send back Brandon Clark, who he kind of becomes a little bit irrelevant after that. And I'm like, man, if you throw in GG Jackson to things, I just like the player in GG Jackson quite a bit. I'm not sure you even have to throw in a pick or anything. Maybe you throw a second because you can make the argument that they're not high-level rotation players for you. So just throw something in like that, and maybe that's an avenue for a team. I don't know. I think that that's kind of an interesting thing to maybe target this year. Going back to it, let's see. What do we want to do now? Do we want to trade Kobe White? Yeah, I think that that's probably the way to go. The Mavericks would have been an interesting option before they went and got D'Angelo Russell, so we'll probably refrain from that. Could we get him to the Phoenix Suns somehow, who have no point guards on their team whatsoever? I'm not sure Kobe White is exactly the option that Phoenix should go for. I think they need more of a playmaker in terms of just actually running and facilitating offense. But why the hell not, right? Why the hell not? It's Kobe White and Jalen Green on one team? What could possibly go wrong, right? Who do the Bulls go after is the question here. What exactly do we do here? So if Kobe White, do we even do a Kobe White? Could we just get rid of another guard? So let's turn off restrictions or whatever, because some of the restrictions on right now are just time related, and this trade would obviously happen later in the season. Like a Trey Jones, I know they just had Tyus and that didn't work out the greatest for them, but send him over to Phoenix, because why the hell not? They just need a point guard and he would help, right? And we could, what would we want back? What would we want back? Because they don't really have draft picks that they can necessarily give up, so I'm not sure that that's actually going to work. Phoenix probably can't actually give us anything that we want, so we refrain from talking to them. Let's just do the Magic one, man. We know the Kobe White Orlando Magic stuff. We've talked about it before. They need people that can create offense and get buckets. That's still going to be a need for this team. So we can do a pretty simple one here of just throw Jet Howard into Chicago, and then we're going to need to throw something else into it. It's probably not going to be Mo. Let's turn restrictions off, or can we just do trade deadline mode? That's probably the better way to go about it. What else do we ask for here? We could ask for Tyus. I really don't think Tyus is going to be that crucial to this team. I really don't. I think he was a solid addition, but I don't think it works. Orlando is hard capped over the first apron by that much. Oh, wow. So they really do have to give up something else more than him. I don't think you ask for an Anthony Black. That just doesn't make sense to send back to Chicago. I feel like you could get more for Goga Bitadze. Don't send Wendell Carter back to Chicago. I think he'd have a stroke or something. So this trade actually isn't as easy to execute as it once was, unless you're willing to throw in some other young people or something like that. We could... if you did like a 3-team trade and found a new home for Anthony Black, as much as Magic fans like Anthony Black, I just don't think he needs to be on this team. Like we actually did a video on that where he was featured. Where was it? Young players that need a trade. Yeah, right here. Yeah, we have Anthony Black on the cover. Go watch that if you're curious about stuff like that. So I think that there's maybe something here if we wanted to work out some sort of 3-team deal. Otherwise, what other people do I want to try to move in this group? If anybody, maybe like a Desumu or something. I don't know. I still say Javon Carter. You can dump him to somebody. Maybe that's where like the Phoenix Suns come in or something. Maybe we just take a 2nd-round pick from them. I don't know. What other team could use just like a reserve point guard or something, like even like the Utah Jazz or something? But like, why would they pay to take on like a reserve guard? That doesn't quite make sense. So I don't know. It's tough. I think you guys kind of get the idea, and the idea of this trade portion of the video is just to give you an idea of things to look for this upcoming season, moves to be made. So try to acquire some draft picks, try to get some young players, get rid of guys that just aren't essential to the rebuild of this team, the hopeful rebuild to this team. But with all that being said, let's move on to the rotation. Alrighty, rotation question mark. I always put the question mark on here just because, look, I'm not in the practices, I'm not in the day-to-day, and those practices and training camps and things like that determine a lot of this stuff, right? It tells you like how the team's flowing together, where people are going to play. This is just my best guess based off of like the basketball that I've watched of people, so that's kind of how I build these rotations. If you're curious about like the EPM weighted stuff, basically we take the EPM numbers from over here, and we're now just weighting things based off of this number is incorrect. It was incorrect in my last video too. I realized that this was incorrect a while ago, but I just haven't taken the time to fix some of the spreadsheets I already made. There we go. It's now just weighted based off how many minutes people are playing. So I went and made a little 10-man lineup here for you guys to kind of take a look at. Obviously, Josh Giddey and Coby White being featured quite a bit, as they're probably the 2 most kind of critical players to the team. Vucevic not giving him quite as many minutes as we were before. Maybe at one point, just getting a little bit older. We don't want to wear him down too much. We want to be able to try to trade him at some point this season, so just enough to kind of show him off. Get Buzelis on the court, because why the hell not, right? Okoro, I kind of just see him being like the 3-and-D wing that can maybe help Coby White and Josh Giddey play a little bit better, so I want him on the court a little bit more. And then we just kind of have a bunch of quality players in the 6th, 7th, 8th spot. And Kevin Huerter, more than capable of a lot of things. Jalen Smith is the big that I'd like to see out there over Zach Collins. That's just my preference. I like that we can kind of go and play a different style with a lob threat and things like that on the team. I think it's more beneficial, especially if you're going to have a Trey Jones out there. I like the playmaking and the pace increase that he can do. Patrick Williams, yeah, like we got to get him back in the court, try to raise his value. That's the best thing for us at this point. Then Desumu has shown enough that he's a quality NBA player that hopefully bounces back a little bit more this year. You'll notice I've got the rookie not really playing many minutes, which, like, look, rookies aren't just guaranteed to play, y'all. Like, they really aren't. So I don't see a need for him to be on the court right now, but I hope that he finds a way on there at some point. Moving on to lineups, this is a little bit different, where I try to take a look at the rotation and be like, okay, what are a couple different lineups I want to see throughout the game, just because I'm curious about them. We have Grow Modus right here. So this is trying to optimize Modus and help him develop a skill set. What you'll notice here is I don't have like true point guards in with this roster. We got Coby White, who, look, he can initiate some offense. You got Kevin Huerter, kind of hopefully a floor spacer. Okoro, defensive player, spacer, and then Jalen Smith, a guy that maybe is more of a lob threat, but also a big that can step out and hit. The idea here is to give Modus the ball a little bit more and try to develop some of that creation skill, because that's going to be important if this guy is ever going to really become anything like really special in the NBA. So I'm hoping that that lineup can kind of help with that development. Also, Jalen Smith maybe not being the most elite rim defender is a good complement with Buzelis. We have pace, because that's what the Bulls are going to need to do again this year, right? Is run. This is kind of the team that I think would be best for that. I've got Trey, Josh Giddey, obviously. That's kind of like his big thing. Patrick Williams can do that. Like, he's a very athletic person that can put the ball on the floor. It's just he does not show it very often, so I'd like to see him out there kind of executing on that. Buzelis and Jalen Smith again. Buzelis obviously being a very good transition player at this point in his career, which most young players are, because that's their main skill set. And then we got Giddey Plus right here. So this is optimizing the guy that's probably the best player on the team in Josh Giddey. What's the kind of team you want around him? Well, you want Coby White, because Josh Giddey's a facilitator. Yes, he was getting you like 20 plus points a game. On a championship level team, Giddey's the facilitator. He makes the offense run. He makes everyone's lives a lot easier. You wonder why Zach LaVine was just like, Zach LaVine's always a very efficient offensive player, but like his job was so easy this last year. So when he was on the team, at least. So we wanna give Giddey the credit there for making a lot of his life a little bit easier. So we're putting Kobe White out there because you need someone to kind of shoot the ball, adding another floor spacer ideally in Kevin Huerter. They played pretty well together last season. You throw him out there. I'm going to throw Patrick Williams out there as well as somebody that's hopefully slashing and playing without the basketball. And then Vucevic, because the pick and pop and like just being able to dump the ball to him is a very useful thing in and of itself as well. This team, noticeably, probably wouldn't be the best defensively, but it's to try to help grow Giddey a little bit more because that's an important thing. But hey, with all that being said, we're towards the end of the video. Let's go do the standing predictions. Alrighty, y'all. So that brings us over here to the predictions tab. You guys know how this works. I press the button, and where I think they're going to finish this season will appear here. We've already filled out a couple teams so far, and I know people are always curious to see where I think people are going to kind of end up. And my greatest fear is that the Bulls end up back in this 9 or 10 seed in the East, because I can't handle it anymore, y'all. I just can't. I don't want to be there anymore. I want to be somewhere new. I want to be bad. Just let me be bad. But where does AVC think the Bulls are going to be? Drum roll, please. Where I drum on the table for some fucking reason. I've got the Bulls as the 11th seed. Yeah, so I do have people above them. I do have the Bulls missing the play-in, but look, I could totally see them kind of falling into the 9 or 10 seed again, and I've got them just right here. So still not getting a very good draft pick overall. I think the Bulls are kind of going to be middle of the pack again, but is what it is. That's just where I got them. I don't feel great about this group like being a good basketball team, but they're not bad enough to just bottom out. And again, I think kind of the gimmick that they do is going to be enough to win you some odd games here and there against good teams potentially. So just something to kind of look out for. But with all that being said, y'all, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks for letting me be the place that you're kind of getting your preseason information from, getting ready for the new basketball year. I think it's a fun thing to kind of do these videos. So try to show them some love and support so that I know that you guys want to do them next year. But yeah, let's move on to the comment of the video. Alrighty, y'all, comment of the video is coming from our Miami Heat season preview video. These thumbnails are only going to get weirder and weirder. What did I do for this one? I did like Embiid getting hurt. We have the Savior Cooper flag. We got Moneybag Tyler Hero thinking about that IG model that he may or may not have cheated with his wife. I don't know how to explain it. It's not my business. I don't give a shit. But yeah, the comment is actually coming from Battle Rapper Day, a frequent commenter on the channel, who said, hey, at this point, what was the button that hid and unhid the columns for like the inputs and stuff? How'd you get that to work? Was it a VBA or formula? No, but I love to give little lessons on this stuff when I can. He's asking about this button right here, I believe, that hides and unhides numbers. This is just a grouping in like Google Sheets or whatever. So basically, if you like do stuff like this, is it in view? Yeah, it's a group right here. So you can group them together, and that gives you this little button that you can use to like hide and unhide columns or rows or whatever in a Google Sheet or an Excel formula. So kind of a nifty little thing, but I always like the opportunity to kind of mention those things whenever. So not a basketball conversation, but a good conversation nonetheless. But yeah, if you guys want to have more good basketball conversations, go join the Discord. Link is here in the description. It's completely free, and it's where you can get access to this spreadsheet here, so you can hit this button with me. And speaking of buttons, make sure you guys hit that like button and everything. What a great end transition for me. What a good job, AVC. Very good. Very good. But yeah, let's get the views up on these videos. I know it's the dead point of the season, but let's get ready for the season, man. It's not that far away now. But as always, hope you guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.